Sharp, wena?
Ke mnate man. Corona e etsang di corona.
Eish, ya re bora.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. Are we supposed to start now or something? I presume because recording it's on.
yeah. I suppose. I don't know. I don't even know what the format is gonna be.
I also don't know, so I'm just given a format to run loose with. So I guess we'll just have like a conversation, nothing hectic, just Rabue about the album itself. Yeah, I think, I don't know. What do you feel about that?
That sounds good.
Sure. So I don't know if you know, my name is Lehlohonolo Peega. Of course, you are Thandi Ntuli. Sean is just hiding behind some camera there. That's fine. So, I mean, try maybe keep it to like 20 minutes or so. I don't know. We'll see, I guess. Sure. So for me, of course, we will have to start from Corona and everything. I see you say, Jorge, you're doing a lot of compositions now in these Corona times. Yeah. Interest, I think, even to your fans would be how do you self-sustain with all your compositions and the work that you are doing during Corona? How do you sustain, whether financially, emotionally? I know you say you're more of an indoors kind of person, but yeah, I mean, how do you self-sustain? It's what, 100 and something days
Ish,
now.
man, it's tough. I mean, I am a person who likes being at home, but it's not nice when you're forced to be home, you know? Um, I miss I miss being able to go out and see music. Well, that's on the career side of things,
Yeah,
because that always inspires us, you know. So
yeah.
writing in a space where it's just my energy that I'm
Mhm.
relying on has been, I think, tiring. um, 'Cause I have to come up with everything. I don't get the life experiences that I'd usually get.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
I don't interact with people the way and all those things play a role, I think, in
Mhm.
my music. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been tough.
So you're saying for this new music, it's going to be a different kind of music. Since you're really not interacting with people, you don't have a band to try out your
Hmm.
composition on. Yeah. So is
Well,
it
no, I mean, I'm not necessarily writing for myself. I'm not writing like
okay?
an album. So I've been writing, the one particular thing I've been working on is a theater production that's happening later in the year.
Mhm.
Um, and I've been writing for that. And then here and there, I've got commissions that have come in. Um,
Okay.
but even then, that's what I mean is that like the energy to start, the ideas, just like,
It's not happening. It's not.
yeah.
It's not. The creative mind. It's not.
Yeah, yeah. I have my days,
Trust me,
and
I know. Yeah.
exactly, I have my days when it's like, brr, brr, and other days
Yeah.
it's like, yo.
Wesibheli asiyajema nje. That's
Siyajema, zonke ziyajema.
Uh, no, that's very nice. So, I mean, going into the album itself, normally when you release an album, you expect a certain kind of trajectory, some moments here and there just to showcase the work. Of course, now you're with Corona, and that's not necessarily the reality.
Yes.
So how do you decide album, or how do you imagine it growing beyond just the archive, which is the actual album? Of
Mhm.
course, during Corona and everything else.
Yes. Well, the funny thing is that this was never a project that I thought about in a terms of a long-term um, way, because the actual album was recorded at a festival where we did a once-off collaboration.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so when I wrote this music, I wasn't thinking long-term. What I had been
Okay.
thinking about for my past album, Exiled, I was thinking
Mhm.
about making it have performance art elements to it, which never
Yes, I
materialized.
saw.
Yeah, which never materialized, but this album was sort of an opportunity to at least extend the music a little bit, and play around with what I was trying to create, in terms of the mood and feeling with the album.
Sure, sure.
So I didn't have any intentions of performing that much, but I
Okay.
did want to have at least one or two performances.
Yeah, yeah.
And I suppose at this point, I'm trying to explore options of how I could do that in a digital way. It's not ideal. I don't enjoy the digital space so much, but it's like, it's got its place, definitely,
Yeah.
because obviously we don't have live right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just tricky. I think I'm navigating just like all other creatives are navigating a lot right now. And Corona is also somehow forcing us to think of new ways to create. Um,
Definitely, yes, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the realities that even post the lockdown and post Corona, we definitely find ourselves in a kind of new reality as artists, because it's not like Mabati theaters open, people suddenly go to theaters and say, okay, I'm just gonna go. They still have reservations and all that.
Yes.
So I totally agree with you already. Now we're forced to engage and think in other ways that we
Yeah.
normally don't think. And of course, conservatives, I mean, also still consider the issue of audience and the energy of audience, and what is the role of that kind of energy. And you speak about it in one of the other articles I saw online. What's the importance of that, really, as a platform of also music making? Because as the audience, when it says, yeah, there's some spirit that just
Yes.
comes and
Yes.
it takes you in a different direction, Okay, interview, it's your interview. So yeah. So yeah, what's your take on this kind of energy and synergy that the relationship between the performer and the audience, in terms of that? Because I think it's more of an important thing. I don't know. I don't want to preempt.
It is
On that.
in the live space. It definitely it's a full circle. The musicians on stage make half a circle, but the audience makes the
Yeah.
other half. And I definitely feel that because different audiences bring out different things in us, and that's because of the energy that they bring to the music. I think now what I'm trying to find for myself is trying to find a way to like to do this kind of performance thing, but not trying to replace live performances.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how you replace something that is what it is,
Yeah.
If you do online performances, let's call it something different. Let's not try and make it fit the space that the live space fit. I think it post
Okay.
corona, for me, it's just presenting a new medium for my art, but not necessarily replacing that one. It's
Yeah.
just right now the focal point. Yeah.
And we find the same element in the album, with the overbearing presence of the audience, in this particular album. I mean, deliberate or by chance, or it just happened, you never thought about it?
No, I didn't
Or
think.
was it a conscious kind of activity that?
No, not at all. Like I said, when we actually played this performance, there was no intention of putting together
Yes.
something that's going to be archived. It was just a performance, which was recorded, and then we were given the option to take the recordings and do what we wanted with it. So my releasing this album, um, it's funny that it's a live album that I release right now, but my releasing this album had less to do with producing an album and conceptually building a body of work in the way I would for a studio album. It
Yes.
had less to do with that and more to just share a moment in time that I thought was special and that I thought
Okay.
also might never be repeated, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was just for the archiving and sharing a moment purposes, nothing to do with really focusing on how I'm going to execute the project.
Yeah.
My thinking was very much about the live situation there, and
Okay.
the music was doing what I had hoped it would do.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you. I mean, there's something that you did there. You know, there's really something. So even the transition, because I listened to the two albums, which is Exile, the 2018 one, and I listened to this one. I have my own opinions, of course, but like I said, not my interview, it's yours. So hey, what got lost, what got gained, you know, because you play with a totally different group of people, and you normally play with a different group of people. And you know, when you play with certain people, there's a rapport that you
Yeah.
build, there's some, you know each other. So what was lost, what was gained from this transition, I mean?
I think what was lost was a sense of comfort. And for me, I appreciated that because it it's something that we forget in the moment when we're uncomfortable, but discomfort presents an opportunity to grow and to do something much better than you would have
Yeah,
done it, or much differently, let me say, not better.
yeah.
Um, so for me, the fact that I was playing with um, a drummer, a bassist, a guitarist, horn players who were not used to the way um,
Yeah,
my compositions feel
sure.
wa- was almost a test for me in terms of one, how well do I communicate my intentions with the musicians who are reading um, the scores,
Sure.
and two, how adaptable am I to a new interpretation, like trying to say similar things with different people. Um,
Sure.
and I think what was amazing was, although it was a very personal story, a very um, close to home, like in SA kind of story
Yeah, yeah.
that I was telling through the music and the experiences, um, it was able to be played by people who have no kind of attachment with what is happening in South Africa. Um, and for me, that was a beautiful thing as well, just a reminder of how music is a language of its own, you know. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that story that you speak of, just take us through. What's the story? What's the journey? Just the musical language you even use, you know, the tonality shifts that you use in there, the harmonic language, and of course you use also spoken word, and there's things that you deliberately put there, and there's a whole of politics, you know, and even the names of the tracks themselves. They, the story. So just take us through the story. Just tell it to us. Now I piano ngomlomo, just
That's
yeah,
hard.
ngomlomo, you know, as a storyteller.
Um, wow, what a challenge. Um,
Yeah.
I think the story is a story that um, my inner world is working out this reality I find myself in. Um, you know, we live in a very in a world that sort of reminds us every time, especially if we've got African heritage, especially if you're a woman, a world that in many ways tells us of our otherness or puts us on the outside in society. But these lessons that I drew from exile were actually from very personal experiences from a relationship, which is not the place.
Always.
Sure, but
Yeah.
it's
So,
it's for me. It's interesting that such a personal experience taught me so much about the world around me, um, and helped me to see what is at play sometimes when we interact with different people. I call it exiled because I play on that word, which for South Africans means a lot in terms of our
definitely.
political
Yeah.
history, for sure. But it also means a lot in terms of the displacement that I feel a lot of people feel. and conversations that I had in the time of writing the album. There's a lot of displaced people in this society that we live in. People who don't feel they fit anywhere or who don't feel represented by anything around them. And it's definitely something that I relate to, but also seeing it as a spiritual disconnect, and how that affects the simple day-to-day things like a relationship, you know, you know, or to a bigger
This
scale,
relationship, yeah.
to a bigger scale, how they affect everybody's relationship with each other, with the world, with the systems we find ourselves functioning in. Yeah. So I don't know if I've made it more confusing.
It's a hectic story. Clearly, it
Not
is.
that hectic. It's probably just that I've said it a few times, so it becomes more philosophical every time I repeat it.
I mean, matters of the heart have never been easy. So it's fine. It's fine. We understand. We understand, definitely. Okay, let's just pick one song, I mean, and just try dissect. Really, as a way of understanding your general thinking process, creative process. So we'll just use one song symbolically as that kind of song, that represent your thinking. So, I mean, for me, I see here setting the tone for exile. Hey, let's see these lyrics. You say here, black love, a real thing, ill-equipped to find ourselves in a boxing ring, open hearts, healing arms, left wounded by the blows of men who couldn't love, and how could they, with all the rage, the trauma woven in their DNA, how could one insignificant relationship love all? It's really loaded. It's a really loaded kind of lyrics. Then the music itself, it's okay. Maybe we can start there with the choice of the language, the harmonic language that you use in that particular song to accompany these kind of lyrics. What's the process? How do you accompany such loaded lyrics, or what is the relationship of those lyrics to the music? Generally, how do you process, these things?
For me, I think it depends what comes first. So if it's the words, which in that case of the poem, that Black Love, I wrote the words separately, and you'll see in the album Exiled, it doesn't really appear there. It appears in the EP.
Yes. Yes.
I wrote the words separately, and so for this performance, I wanted the music to feel like the words,
Yes.
and to have a recognition of all these hypocrisies that we see in our lives, but also to see how interwoven our histories are in bringing us to where we are, whether it's on a collective level or on an individual level. So I wanted the song to have that mix of bringing across that emotion of just, like, who am I? Where am I? What is this?
Yeah, because it's displaced.
Yeah,
it's almost like 12 tone, it's like, it's just, yeah, sure.
Exactly. And I wanted it to feel that way, but I also, later on, it just goes into a very almost meditative, kind of repetitive pattern.
Yeah, it finds itself, sure.
It finds itself. So it's like, in a sense, that way, there was some kind of okay, yes, things are detached, but they're also steady and they're repetitive, and it's like cyclic. Yeah, I guess all those things metaphorically linking with what I feel exile is. Part of it is feeling detached. Another part of it is being repeated in a cycle that's not like sort of getting you anywhere. So I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily think about all of that when I'm writing the music, but I think from a feeling perspective, that's what I'm aiming to depict.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Yeah, and you know, it's always a big kind of topic in the music scene of the process, the actual process. And you know, people like us will then come and want to make something of it, to say, you know, Thandi actually thought about that note.
No, no, no.
Yeah, I
I
get
think,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot of intuitive
yes.
things that happen with that.
But even that, for me, I mean, it's a method on its own, because it's not like everybody can do it. So you have to build the intuition itself so that it
Sure,
can easily guide you. So I still argue it is a method which you
absolutely,
build
for
time.
sure.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
fair enough. We can take that one. Then there's this huge one of the incorporation of strings. You make the point that you have never really written for strings. And, you know, Winton, hey, Winton, you did play with Winton at some point. Winton speaks in one of his swing symphonies, speaks about making sure that you don't really have like two separate performances in one song, where you just have the band. And so how do you make sure that they actually come in together and become one song? Because most people would just spare the strings, give them two bars there, then it's back to the band. There's a staccato there, you know. So how do you ensure that you actually use what's at your full disposal to it? And do you perhaps think you did a fair enough job? Any reflections on that?
Um, I think in a sense because I started with classical music and I had an exposure to symphonic music
Mhm.
quite early on. I kind of enjoy music that has different things happening over there and over there. So um, in that sense, when I was thinking of this, I wasn't thinking of it just as a band, but I was thinking of it as an orchestra, even though it's a much smaller orchestra.
Yes.
So the strings, thinking of what the strings are usually doing in an orchestra, they're usually moving together, and then the horns do this and they answer that, or they intertwine. And I mean, I didn't get very technical and complex about it. Um, but I think in terms of where I could grow towards, I know that I could bring in more of the interplaying between the two sections. But I think of the different instruments as sections more than individual instruments. And in
Okay.
that way, every section does its own job. There's the rhythm section, which is the bass, drums, percussion, piano. There's the string section, which for me was providing sort of a blanket, and the horns that
Okay.
would do other things. Yeah, and so when I think of them as sections, then everyone has a role, and I almost write it in that way. So the strings, I write them together, and so on and so on.
That's an interesting. So you, in essence, you think of the sections as instruments, you know.
Oh,
Say
yes,
this,
yes,
yeah.
yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah, it is the bass clarinet. Let's talk about the bass clarinet. I know, as a composer, it's not a particularly easy instrument to imagine, you know. The bass clarinet, what's happening?
I love the sound of that instrument, and I've found it mostly in European um, jazz outfits. That's where I found that
Yeah.
instrument appear a lot, and I always love the way it makes the music feel so melancholic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so the actual guy who did play bass clarinet is a guy whose music I've heard many years before meeting him,
Mm-hmm.
Niels, and he's from
Mm-hmm.
Sweden. He
Sure.
has he has a band called Stoner, which I remember when we were in varsity, it was like we were circulating the music and we loved it, and it was just like stuff we were going crazy about. But
Mm-hmm.
I think from that time, I started being very intrigued with the sound of bass clarinet in jazz. And I guess I put it in because I knew he also played saxophone. So when I saw that he
Yes.
was an option, of the musicians I could play with, I jumped at it and I wanted to see how it would sound with the other instruments.
Interesting. Kasiva, you know, as a percussionist, you know,
Yes.
because in the actual recording, she's there, right?
Yes.
Or did I miss that part?
No.
Recording, she's not there, but she was there with you throughout. So what was happening? What was the energy there?
We had 2 performances, and the second one she had to leave. So she only played at the first one. And the video of New Way, which is on YouTube currently,
yes.
she is on that video because that's from the first night recording.
Yeah.
The actual album itself was from the second day because it was
Yes.
a much better performance. Kasiva's got great energy. I didn't know about her. I just told the festival organizers that I'd like to have a percussion. And they told me about her, and I watched videos and I was blown away. But even just meeting her, she's got the most infectious energy. It's like that drum gives her joy, I tell you. She's got such an infectious personality and very positive. You can already feel the shift in energy when she walks into a room, you know. And it was great to have her on. Very sensitive percussionist, but also very powerful. Which I absolutely love that balance that she has.
Yeah. She does this thing. I mean, as a percussionist, it's the discipline. That's the one thing that I realized. Discipline is just impeccable, you know, because you always get tempted as a percussion to add some additional rhythms there and there, or just discipline, stay there. It's, I don't know. Perhaps was it a thing that you said, oh no, man, I just need you to hold back, or just offered it, or
she just offered it. That's the space that I allow the musicians to have still comes from the jazz mentality. So as much as I'm thinking of orchestrally, I still think of the musicians themselves as jazz musicians, where they are given the space to bring in their own flavor to what I've prescribed.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, perhaps let's take 2 more. So I mean, it's coming all right. So I mean, there's this thing I call personally the UCT jazz. You know, the UCT jazz style. From every cat of UCT that I know, it's like it's there. It's pop, it's bebop kind, it's poppy, it's lines, it's, you know, licks. Skipper, it looks like a really established style, and you can just identify, okay, this guy is from UCT. Well, they're still coming. They'll establish their own style, you know. They're still coming through. Because even in this album, I hear it's there. Are you aware? The thing.
I honestly would never. I find it very funny when people say that I sound like I've got a bebop or hard bop background. I find it strange. I'm like, really?
You do.
But I do recognize that UCT had a very strong focus on bebop. I remember that was like everyone wanted to play bebop, and I think I necessarily got there to being able to play bebop, but there were things I picked up from it. So maybe that's what's coming through. I'd never seen it as that.
It is. I'm telling you, it's a definite style of UCT. It's just there. I mean, it's okay. Last one, pianist, singer. You know, it's the conundrum of Nina Simone. Pianist.
Which one must I choose?
I don't know. What do you have to say? Pianist, singer, are you choosing? Are you leaning towards one? Do you prefer?
I'm not choosing.
Why not?
I love both. And both is like they're both like different personalities of mine. I even notice when I write a song for piano, it comes from a different place in my brain from when I write a song, that I'm thinking about the voice as the thing that's leading the song. So I don't know. For me, I think there are two parts of my personality which I like to have appearing together. And I think the most important one for me is that I'm a composer, I'm a writer. So that's the thing that I love to do. And sometimes I am the instrument that I need to use, which is piano and voice. And other times I need other people like trumpet and saxophone and all that. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, how's that coming along? I saw you are taking some upskilling, as you said, upskilling in terms of positions, you know? How's that coming along? Any particular book you would be checking out with you?
I do have a book that I am about to start reading that I was sent to me. It's called Story by Robert McKee.
Okay.
Mostly focused around film scoring and writing for TV.
Yes.
But in terms of what I've been doing, I think I've been going back to basics a bit. I've like bought a singing course, stuff, all the stuff that you do during lockdown.
Sure.
You know,
Make
sure you come out of this much better at before.
Yeah. Cement that theory, you know.
Yeah, that's just the kind of things I've been doing. Nothing specific or hectic.
Anything to look forward to? Any big thing coming through? Where we're taking this album? Any new faces in the album? Or any new collaborations? I don't know.
I mean, people can look out for. I've done a few at-home collaborations in this time, and I think people can just, if they want to listen to all that other stuff that I've been busy with. I've recently released a single with a band called Lakota in Switzerland. Yeah, and it's just very different stuff. But again, like I say, it's me being a composer, which is my primary love. So that's
Switzerland. So you're Switzerland.
I
To give you citizenship. Next thing you get citizenship here. Please. No, man. I think that's just about it. Thank you very much for sharing. And hopefully it's not the last one. We want maybe perhaps for the next, have another one where we just go in depth, technical music thing. But for everyone,
For sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao.